So what has been a traditional way of estimating, and how is probabilistic forecasting different to that?
Well, one of the things that's become popular in the last 20 years was the use of story points, which have been largely decided to be unhelpful. They were a nice version of relative sizing. So one job takes you, a half day. The other job looks like it's got twice as much stuff in it, juice. So it seems like it's got more juice, and the other one is twice as bad. Call the first one a 1, call the second one a 2. Pick a number. Of course, this has problems, is that when you have numbers attached to them, people believe that there's some magic constant K. So story points times K equals full duration. And the fact is, it is an estimate. And I'm sure Perry will want to weigh in on it. Estimates have a range, right? So it'll be between 2 hours and 3 days, typically. So there isn't a magic constant that we can use. We need a better system for deciding when we can start the next thing. And also, of course, people need the estimates because they want to know when they can't see the changes, when they can start to see the next change. And we find that it's a way of working, and a lot of people do it that way, but there are other ways as well. I'll just hold that for now.
Yeah, and just to add to that, when those estimates inevitably end up being wrong, what we've sort of always done in the past is get a bigger magnifying glass and spend more time and look more closely at the problem and try to get better. And it just doesn't work, right? We've tried it over and over again, tried to spend multiple days creating these estimates, and we don't end up coming up with better, more accurate estimates.
That's why they call it a swag.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, a colleague, a mentor that I worked with for a number of years, once said, all estimates are lies. It's just the one we give is the best lie that we have right now. And the trouble we get into is the minute we start taking an estimate and turning it into a commitment on a date, and it's not based on any strong, physical science or evidence. So yeah, estimates are a tricky thing. If I was a customer, the first question I might want to ask are you done yet? And if the answer is no, the next question on my mouth is, so when are you going to be done? And that's fundamentally the question. Getting back to why do we need estimates? That seems to be the main question we need to be able to faithfully be able to share with a customer or client or stakeholder.
There's a nice little piece with that, is that despite what McConnell said in his book, most places there's a game around estimation, right? So the team says this is, whatever way they say a week's worth of work. Then somebody else who has interest in the future is like, well, could it be in half that time, or could it be in 2/3 that time, or could it be at 80%? How low can you go? And so sometimes this evolves into a negotiation rather than an estimate. Now, of course, if we think it'll take a week and you talk us down to 3, we still think it's a week. We've just agreed to go along with what you've demanded, which means that generally speaking, estimates don't come in short. Estimates almost always are they don't come in long, sorry. Estimates almost always are too tight to be reliable, but people don't feel free to say that this estimate is too tight, that it won't really be done. There's a political power relationship problem there. So I know it's a week, but you've talked me down to 3. That doesn't mean it'll be 3. And now all of our estimates, when we add them together to see when we're going to finish a big job, are almost always going to be tremendously short because all of the little estimates we added were short. This shows us again that we need some way of forecasting that isn't prone to that kind of societal, internal pressure in the company, that people won't talk us down to something that we don't believe in. Instead, that we can find a date that is likely to be true.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good.
Tim, you mentioned Steve McConnell's book, and one of the things I remember getting out of that is that inherent in all of us is a desire to be really super accurate. And so when somebody comes and asks me for an estimate, I'm predisposed to try and say, well, I'll be done on Tuesday of October or whatever, something very precise, when the truth is I don't have that level of accuracy available to me. So, I would be much better off giving a range of dates, because that leads us to something that's actually more honest.
I know this is I don't want to belabor the point on this, but Perry, none of us know. None of us really know, because every job there is just effort, right? How much typing you have to do, how much testing you have to do. But that's only one tiny component of the time that goes away. Actually, the other three are much bigger. So the second component is the risk. So if I'm going to touch this code, it might break things that I can't anticipate, because I only know so much of the code base. So there's a risk that things might break. And if they do, we have to hunt down why they broke so we can fix it so that they won't break anymore. And we don't know, that might take a minute, it might take a week. It's hard to say. So risk is another element. So you got risk and effort. And then there's one more element that sits on top of that normally, is we don't know what we'll have to learn in order to know how to solve this problem. So we're at the edge of our knowledge all the time. I might need to just read a paper. I might just need to read a web page. I might have to dig. So those two things are not known. Now, I said there was 4. There's one other, but we cannot predict at all. And that's delay or interruption. So I say this is going to take 5 days, but on day 2, there's a production outage, and we all have an all hands event. We need to go through and get the system working again. And that takes how long? Well, we didn't plan on it happening. We don't know. Maybe it took a day. Well, now my estimate is off by a day, right? And then, my child gets sick. I have to go to school and pick them up. Well, that's going to take 4 hours out of my day. Okay, well, there's another loss. So if you think about it, effort we're pretty good at. If we know what everything is, but normally we have effort, we have the uncertainty, the learning, right? We have the risk of breakage, and then we have the complete unknown of interruption. If we can get through those things, we could give an accurate assessment, but none of us ever knows how much those are going to be.
Yeah, just think of all the time it takes to come up with those estimates, right? I mean, the poker, the conversations, the time away. I mean, and the comparing, right? Comparing one thing to another. I mean, some teams are able to do it in, maybe 30 minutes, but I've seen sessions where people take hours in estimating, depending on how many things are in that basket that need to be done.